welcome fans to another edition of myStartUp.Live. I'm Kevin Allen, your host. Today is August 25th. It is a hot end of the summer, and I hope you're having a good summer. Wanted to introduce to you a very special guest, as it is always, Mr. Joshua Crowe with Usurit.
All right, thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh is an innovative company in the life insurance business, and we're going to learn a lot about his solution. But before that, I want to get a background of who this man is and how he got to where he is today. So, Josh, tell me what you went to college, you didn't go to college, the College of Life. Tell me about your background.
It would be the College of Life. So I didn't go to college.
Okay.
For me, I learned how to make money at a pretty early age, and so I pursued that instead. My grandfather was actually an entrepreneur, and so I kind of followed those footsteps. A few years ago, and the way that I kind of came into Usurit was really a matter of I was hating what I was currently doing. So I actually was involved with a screen printing shop, super messy, business, and it just wasn't for me. And so I was really looking for something that I could be passionate about and really fall in love with. And it just so happened to be around the time that I was leaving that one of my, my best friend, his father had passed away. Okay. And so with that passing, I was up and talking to his mother, and in talking to his mom, she was kind of soaking to me about the fact that hadn't her husband had life insurance, they would have been, kind of out in the streets. And so it was really about hearing a little bit more. So basically she was looking for that life insurance agent, and she wanted to, reach out to him and thank him. And I thought, well, maybe that's something that I could actually pursue and have passion about, helping individuals like that man helped their family. And so, I started at Prudential Financial, which is a large life insurance company.
Huge life insurance company.
Huge, yeah.
I mean, $billion company.
Trillion, actually. And the idea there was really to just reach as many people as I could, no different than that man had reached, my friend's mother's family, their family.
Sure.
And so, started at Prudential, and we really hit it running. And, first year, Rookie of the Year, did very well. And then, going forward, was very successful in that space. And, one of the markets we had worked was paid leads. And those paid leads, the biggest issue coming from the paid leads was the fact that they wanted to do this themselves. They didn't actually want the involvement of a sales guy who they believe was going to sell them a product they didn't need at a price they couldn't afford.
So you're saying the consumer was sort of turned off by the element of having a salesperson pushing them this policy or this setup, this scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea was to give them a true solution instead of incentivizing them to get a quote. Actually give them the opportunity to get the quote and complete the process online themselves. Now, these individuals we find were the type that want their cake and eat it too, in the sense that they also want a sales guy available at every part of the step.
Right.
So they want to be able to do it themselves, but if they have questions or need help, there better be a guy there right on the spot.
Right.
So that was kind of the birth of Usurit and coming up with a solution for that problem, and that's exactly what we do.
So walk me back at Prudential. You learned a lot about sales, clearly.
We did, yeah.
How did those sales leads come in? You said paid leads. Describe those.
Yeah, so paid leads, basically, there's a lot of companies that sell paid leads. The majority of people that are going online to look for life insurance right now, they actually become, they're called a paid lead. And so basically you go online and you're looking to get a quote, you fill out your information, that information is then sold to us. You don't actually ever get a quote. You end up on a page that says, sorry, we need some further information. An agent will reach out to you.
Right.
And either there's really two types. There's one type of business that sells them, like a lead generation company, and then there's another type, kind of like SelectQuote, who has an internal sales team. And so they use the same model, but they turn around and they
so it's like one part of the company is grabbing the leads, another part of the company is following up on those leads.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so really it was to remove that second half and allow them the ability to just do it all themselves.
Just finish the process right there.
Yeah.
And save time.
You save a lot of time, yeah.
And money.
You save a lot of time.
Because you're eliminating that commission of the salesperson and the overhead that comes with that.
And then also, you have the opportunity to really work and compare a lot of different products. So when we were working for, our Prudential, it was really more so about selling just Prudential products. And we did have access to some other carriers, but really it was about pushing that product. And so Prudential is more so the Cadillac of life insurance. And with that came a little bit higher price. And so with this solution, it's a comparison site. So people are able to look at quotes from all the carriers, and so they can choose which one is most affordable for them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, with Prudential, with such a big company behind them, there's that trust element that the consumer has, that sort of comfort that, hey, there's a big company supporting me and it's never going to fail. How do you build that trust going forward with your consumers, considering you don't have that established history or sort of big billion-dollar backing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be challenging. I think one of the ways to answer that is that we're selling those companies' products, and so it's not a proprietary product as much as it is a comparison site.
Okay.
And so when they come to the site, it really the value that we're adding is in the recommendation engine, and that's using artificial intelligence to help understand what the consumer needs as far as coverage goes, what they need as far as the product type goes, and then giving them quotes for those things.
So you're actually engineering the entire survey element as
Yes.
well as more transparency with the solutions that are out there, so the different packages.
Exactly. So right now, if you go online to get a quote, the only true solution as far as allowing you to walk through the process, they don't really actually sit down with you, so to speak. So we're taking the 15 years of our combined experience, and instead of just saying, hey, we think you need $500,000 and giving them a quote for that, we walk them first through that process like we did in person. It's like a needs analysis to understand why they're buying the insurance in the first place, if they even need it. But then with that data, we can actually figure the type of insurance they should be buying, whether it's
Right.
permanent or term. Those are the two general types.
But you handle both. You handle both.
Yeah.
Permanent and term life.
And we do, and so that's one of the big differences between Usurit and some of the competitors out there, is the fact that not only are we true to the life insurance category, we don't have plans to really sell other insurance products, but also the fact that, I didn't get your question there.
No, just that you're handling both types of the insurance, both permanent
Yes,
and
is
term.
that the competitors only offer term life insurance as of right now, and you can only get term life insurance online as we speak. You can't even get quotes for permanent.
Okay.
So yes.
And one thing we were talking about is how important it is for entrepreneurs to consider life insurance, because if you're starting a new business and typically with a corporate job, you're going to get a benefit, which is
You get like
life
one
insurance.
times your salary is life insurance.
1x
for free.
times or 2.5 times even at the maximum your salary. And this is not available necessarily if you're in a startup environment, so you need to essentially purchase it yourself.
Exactly.
So not only are you offering that solution, but you're also encouraging entrepreneurs to pursue that, small business owners and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, it is important. If you have a family that's dependent upon you for an income, it is definitely important. What's funny, though, is you find that majority of people fall into the persona of, because we've quantified that a little bit, of being reactive. That's 85% of all buyers of life insurance. And basically, reactive people are the type that had a situation happen to them. There's a death in the family, maybe an acquaintance or friend or whoever, and then they run out and say, I gotta go. They panic. And it's kind of at that point, and then they go buy life insurance.
So they're very motivated buyers.
They are very motivated buyers, but I would say, before that occurs, you want to be more so the type that would, be a little bit more proactive in buying the insurance, or predictive as we call it, before those types of events occur, because that could be you, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think that planning your future as a business owner, as a small business, as an entrepreneur is incredibly important.
Yes.
And planning your not being here is also important, especially if your family is depending upon the assets of the business or your own value.
Exactly.
So you grew up, where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in a small town called the High Desert. So it's like what they call the pit stop on the way to Vegas, or the armpit of California.
The one you literally breeze bath at 75 miles an hour, right? Or 70.
Get through it as fast as you possibly can. Yes, that's the one.
What brought you down to this area?
I really was just looking for opportunity. Up there it was difficult. It's a very small town. The populace is very tiny. And I tried a couple of things. I always had that entrepreneurial spirit growing up. Yeah. From a very young, from adolescence. And at one point in time, I started a business. It was called Build-A-Buddy, and it was kind of a knockoff of Build-A-Bear. Mm-hmm. And it was a successful business. I ended up selling it. It was just a kiosk on a cart in the middle of a mall.
Okay.
And in that, I realized that to scale it up there to where I wanted it to potentially go, it was just not really possible.
You didn't have enough foot traffic.
Not enough foot traffic.
Yeah. But you learned a lot about running a business. I mean, you had to do all the intricacies of the business.
Exactly.
You had to have inventory. You had to do invoicing or transactions.
Yep. And hiring people. I think one of the more difficult parts is, finding, people to hire, the right
Finding a
people,
team.
or even the team. Exactly. So
What's your team look like today?
So the team is there's the three of us on the executive side. That would be Albert Lee, who's here with me today.
Okay.
He's on the CMO, and then we also have myself, who's CEO, and then we have our CTO, which his name is Vamsi, who's not here today.
Okay.
Albert has several years of experience in life insurance. So I actually met Albert at Prudential, and so we kind of teamed up, and this vision and dream kind of became a reality together. It was really, he's more the brains of the outfit, more so than anything. I've always kind of been the drive.
Sure.
And so before that, though, we actually had, several years in marketing, digital marketing. And so our, those two kind of went hand in hand. So we decided to really start the idea
that's
together.
actually really important message, of course, is when you're finding your team, you're finding your partner, is to find those that match well or complement your abilities.
Right.
You have that operational background.
Exactly.
You've obviously run a business in the past, even if it was small.
Yeah.
And then, of course, having a marketing expert and a technology partner as well on the executive team.
Exactly. And then, Vamsi, he was actually, he was a hire online. And so we used,
Which website?
I believe it was Indeed.
Okay.
And so I find Indeed to be pretty easy. We got a lot of candidates. Vamsi, the reason we liked him is his experience. He had several years of working with Experian and Johnson & Johnson. But also at the same time, he saw the vision of where we wanted to go, and that was really important because I don't think he would have came and worked for us if he didn't, because we actually have him on a contingent contract.
I was going to say.
So we utilize a contingent contract based on funding that he would actually go full-time, get his full salary once we get funded.
So it's a guarantee of a position and, of course, a salary once you're in the money.
Exactly, and so that's. Again, he's really taken a risk because he's got expenses to meet, like we all do. But he's taking a very much a reduced salary, and so a lot of that was the vision. Then we have a pretty good board of advisors. Lucky there, some of that was friends and family.
Okay.
And so on the tech side, our technical advisor, his name's Hiro Mariyama. That is one of my best friend's dads.
Okay.
And so Hiro, he owns a company called Sustain. They make a product called Mobile Genie, and that's a data extraction software for old feature phones. And then he also owns, which is kind of deprecated now, but he did well with it years ago.
I'm sure. When now all the phones were transitioning to smartphones. Now it's all in the cloud,
see you
right?
Later. Yeah, exactly. And so there was that, and then he also has SecureView, which they're still up and running, and that's a forensic data extraction software the FBI uses. But anyways, do you want me to move through the rest of those advisors?
I mean, if it's relevant, certainly having a board of advisors, I think, is really the important message here. Is to consider that, especially at a very early stage. An advisor doesn't have to necessarily be paid. They don't necessarily have to dedicate a lot of time to your business. I mean, what would you say is the amount of time that most of your advisors are dedicating per month?
A few hours a month.
There you go.
The really important thing is that you have them there to reach out to when you come across stumbling blocks that you could not answer yourself because you don't have maybe the experience, for instance. I think the one that I really want to speak about before moving forward is Ike Arizma, who works for 1212. And the reason I want to bring that up is because we didn't have that relationship before reaching out to him. First of all, he was a very genuine, authentic guy who was willing to give us some time. But really, what I want to point out is, as an entrepreneur, it's about the persistency. When you know that you need somebody that has that experience or anything else in life, you go and get it. And so we pursued several people to finally come across a relationship that would give us the time, that was very experienced as well, and we just continued to pursue it regardless.
Did you get some no's, though,
we did,
in that path?
We got some no's even from like Ike, but we just kept, we pushed forward. We kind of just pushed the no's aside.
Took them out to dinner, sent them some gifts.
Everything we had to do, exactly. Man. Anything you have to do, just grease the elbow, wine and dine, whatever you got to do to get the answers that you need to continue moving forward.
And now he's obviously committed to the cause and sees the value that you've presented.
Exactly. And so now, we have a little bit, we get a little more time from him. It's a few hours per month or more from those advisors.
So you talked about, obviously, the trust factor of building a business that has sort of established, historic, brands therein. But you're still going up against them in the sense that you're taking away some of the sales of those big Goliaths.
Yeah, I mean, you are and you aren't, because the way that it works is, when we sell one of their products, they're actually seeing, so the life insurance, if you want to know, pays you up front the first year's commissions or first year's premiums. Every premium they're forward, if it's a 30-year policy, that life insurance company is getting. So they don't really care necessarily how it's sold, as long as it's sold.
Right.
So that's, I guess,
as long as they get
that
stream of premiums.
Exactly.
Or revenue.
And so, right now, the biggest distribution channel for life insurance falls in the hands of, really hitting the phones, like the old deprecating model of face-to-face, hitting the phones, getting people to sit down with you, and then selling them from there.
Right. But that's a part of the equation you're removing.
Exactly. That is the idea, to remove that, but it doesn't mean that their sales would necessarily reduce, I guess, because we'd still be selling their products.
Right. But talk me through the technology. You obviously have a platform that you have to develop to both survey and, of course, distribute the leads and the quotes, the quotes. Talk to me about the development of that technology. Where did you source that? How are you kind of going about building that?
Yeah, so majority of the work, as far as the website goes, on the front end, the recommendation engine, the one that does our job, was developed in-house by us. And so, I actually, believe it or not, have some development background. And so it's really been me and Vamsi, taking on that task.
Okay.
And so there's that. We're in our second phase now. So right now it's a very basic, quick quote. And so you can go through and enter some basic information, and you can get quotes, and you can also select a quote, and you can move to the application process. But it's really not to the point of helping people understand why they need the coverage, or how much coverage they need, understanding the product type, and getting quotes, like I said, is already there. So that's the second phase, which we're developing right now. Now, again, that's all done in-house between the two of us.
That's the secret sauce.
That's the secret sauce right there. Yes, exactly.
So let's take a look. You have a little bit of a screenshot here which shows
like the
kind
UI?
of what the UI is going to look like.
Sure.
If we can get us out of the picture, there we go. So this is, just describe this screen here.
Yeah, so that's actually beyond the recommendation engine. So the user comes into the front page. There's a little get a quote button there. They'll hit it. They walk through inputs. They're asked several questions. And then from that, this is the quote page. And so they get to move into the quote page. This is giving them quotes based on their coverage type and the product type. And they can it's really easy, it's simple UI. At the top there, they have the ability to change the actual, the face amount. So they can use that slider to increase or decrease the amount they want.
Okay.
And then right below.
Sliders.
Yeah, me too. They make it easy.
Makes it really easy.
Anything to make it easy. And then right below that is the actual period of time. So that's a term policy. So that slider would, if you want a 10-year,
15-year,
20.
yeah,
Exactly.
Okay.
And then anytime you slide those, it actually updates the quotes directly below. Now those little boxes you see, what's really cool too is if you press on any one of those, there's a drop-down menu that opens up, and it'll give you some history about the company. Tells you a little bit as to where they sit in regards to how favorable they are for particular types of underwriting, medical conditions.
Yep.
And then it gives you, ideas like about when they were established or started, how many their total assets, how many policies they have. So it kind of gives the user an idea of who if they're purchasing from that company, what stands there behind.
Okay. And then of course this is the website there, usurit.com.
Yeah.
And is that live now?
It is live now. So we have the MVP up and running.
Okay.
Again, some of the content, we're about 2 months backlogged on content. And so we've been updating that. And,
sure.
Right now we kind of broke it in to give you guys a little, to understand the phases that we've gone through. So we kind of always had the idea to bootstrap in the end, because we're not going to, this is not an idea that if we don't get funding, we're not going to pursue. We're going to pursue it no matter what. So as we're bootstrapping it, we're looking for funding. The phase, the first phase was really to get the website, the MVP up and running. Mm-hmm. And now we're in phase 2, which is to get traffic to the website. So that's why that content was backlogged, and now it's going up.
In some ways does require some funds. So where are you at in terms of having a sort of spend, a marketing spend, or having, money to generate that awareness?
Yeah, so all of it's coming out of our own pockets, like we're bootstrapping, like I said, Fred. I mean, we are looking for funds because that would really speed it up. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, what we're doing is we're doing Usurit full-time right now, and then we work part-time on the deprecating model, selling life insurance over the phone and in person.
Okay.
So, we work, 12, 14-hour days, and 8 to 10 hours of those goes to Usurit, and the others go to the other model.
But by doing that, you're still connecting with your end consumer on the phones and learning every step of the way
yes.
about their needs.
Well, what's really crazy too is what we do is when we sit down with these individuals, we'll bring the actual computer, the site out with us.
Right.
And then right there, we're walking them through the process to understand, more about what changes we could actually integrate to make the site more useful or better.
So you're actually doing sales while getting a little bit of customer feedback before sort of going full time with this
exactly.
solution.
And then the monies that we're generating from the sales are actually going back into the business.
Right back into the business.
Yeah. So it's difficult. We're used to we had it pretty good before. Joining the Startup.Live is more difficult, I think, and challenging than I would assumed. But we're making it. We're pushing forward.
For sure.
So it's working.
What are some of the challenges that you really had a tough time with that have taken you multiple iterations to sort of get through?
Probably the recommendation engine, creating the algorithm on the health analyzer, because we want to try to get, our objective is to be as accurate as we can with the quotes. And in order to do that, there's so many variables because people can have a series of different illnesses.
Sure.
And so it's really it's a huge sheet, a huge algorithm that asks hundreds of different questions. I mean, total,
right,
not to every person.
Right.
But if somebody answers yes to something, then there's another question.
There's a whole nother series of questions.
And so that was pretty challenging. Again, I refer back
if
to
this, then that, and then it kind of follows the flow.
Exactly. So kind of going back to Albert, who has been really the thinker behind the whole thing. Him and I, we sit down, and Vamsi too. For hours.
You're geeking out over just this algorithm.
Just going crazy, yeah. And so there's that, and then the second half of that is the recommendation on the product type. And so that's fairly challenging as well.
So the match of, you've got this, profile this consumer, you match them as accurately as possible.
Exactly.
The ideal solution for them.
Exactly.
And that's essentially what a salesperson would do.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Already.
Yeah. And so instead of assuming what somebody should need, I don't walk in a room as a sales guy and say, hey, look, I think you need 500,000.
Right.
I ask questions, and we always have. We sit there and we get to know the consumer. So really, that's what we're creating. We're creating a software that understands the consumer. And then with that under artificial intelligence too, I think that down the road, what's really cool is we can make suggestions based on data collected. So if it's a 30-year-old that just bought a home and has 2 kids, hey, look, so-and-so, X percentage of people did this, or Joe Smith did this, or whatever.
Right.
And so
the more and more consumers you have, the smarter that engine becomes.
Exactly.
And I think that's where all solutions are going, all technical solutions that are data driven.
Yes.
They're going in that direction because, if you can analyze the data properly, you can provide a better recommendation.
Yeah. And
then what happens if you're off? What happens if your algorithm is off and it doesn't match up perfectly? What's the failing there? What sort of goes off?
So they have to go through underwriting regardless. Basically, if that was the case, which we would hope it's not, they would end up paying either less or more for the product that they're applying for.
Okay.
But we do give disclosure as to that the quotes we're giving aren't necessarily set in stone, for lack of better words.
Right. They're a ballpark or a very close, educated, element.
Exactly. The other thing I want to mention too that I think is important and we're working on is really humanizing the site. And so that means, right now it's a little cold, like when you go through the life insurance, the process. And so what we've actually begun to integrate, it's not live yet, but it will be here soon, is more of like a chat box that you would go into.
Right.
So when you get a quote, there's a little image of Josh Crowe that pops up there at the top of the screen, and you're like in a chat session that almost looks like an iPhone.
Right.
And, we start to ask.
It's not necessarily a human being.
It's not. It would be robotic, but it gives you the sense and feeling or the perception of speaking with a human being.
Right.
And so we think that there's a lot of value there. I think that that's going to go a long way for us, especially in humanizing the site and making people, like going back to the trust factor.
Right.
They also have the ability to ask questions, and those questions inside of that text box will be shot off to a live agent.
Sure.
And so there is the ability.
They could jump in.
They could talk with it. Exactly.
Okay. So eventually, as you scale the business, you could have more and more, let's say, consultation that's integrated throughout when there's a need.
Yes, we want to be there like through the whole process when they need us. and not pushing ourselves on them.
Okay. So how do you scale this? I mean, clearly it's a model that can be scaled as big as, you can find clients for, and that's endless, really.
Yeah.
So what is your goal going forward? Talk to me about the timing of the launch, the sort of public push and that marketing effort that you were speaking about.
Yeah, so we're trying to gather some funds, and once we gather the funds, in that first year, it's really about building the machine. It's a small scale. It's confined geographic region, really Southern California, and then majority of California. Once we prove that model's up and running and we get the machine running, then it's year 2 scalability. And so at that time we move into really year 2 is a function of offering our services in several states.
Okay.
So we've identified several states that have the highest life insurance annual premiums. So we're going to target those, and then
Target-rich environment.
Exactly, and then year 3 is really about going nationwide.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of some of the idea behind scaling.
So that's 2017. Let's say 2018, 2019, you should be nationwide to a degree. 2019, 2020, depending upon.
Really, we anticipate at least 3 years from when we get funding, because the funding is really going to help push the company forward.
Course.
If we continue to bootstrap, that would probably take a lot more time.
What is your first step towards that end? You've presented to some investor groups already.
Yeah.
And what's the perception been so far?
So I think another, maybe a good piece of advice is, trying to go out there and look for angels is difficult. I came from, both of us don't come from backgrounds of wealthy individuals, and so we don't have, Uncle Todd to reach out for funds, right? And so what we did was we just have looked for alternative ways to get funding. And one of the ways we started was with LinkedIn. So we got their premium, the package, and then we filtered for seed investors, early stage investors, angel investors. And we hit those guys up with our pitch deck.
No way.
Yeah, and we
just
did.
Straight up cold call.
Oh yeah, just bam, just like that.
Yeah.
And we've actually got a really good response from that. And so we just started pitching 3 weeks ago, and we've sat in front of quite a few people. We don't have funds as of yet, but that's kind of where it all started. And
but it's getting warm.
It's getting warm. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, again, the investors, if you want to know what they're looking for is as far as we've seen, is they're looking for a series of data points that reduce their risk to a point where they're willing to come in and invest.
Right.
And so we're making that relationship.
They want
we're
a
building
guarantee.
it. They want a guarantee. Yeah.
And what sort of guarantee are you able to provide at this point? Not necessarily, I mean, you don't have to speak specific numbers, but what's the guarantee you've been able to demonstrate?
I mean, really, I think for us, it's having that team, that strong team and advisory board. It's having that MVP, right, and proving to them that we can actually execute. And I think that says a lot for us.
Define MVP just for the
Oh,
audience.
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, that's
market
the
validation.
Minimum viable product.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just a very lean version of what's to come.
It's functional. It does what it says it does, and there's an end goal. There's an end product that's being received.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you don't have a family to reach out to, or friends and family that have the monies, you got to figure out a way to work. I say LinkedIn's a good place to start. Another place that we looked was through the newspaper, and we were looking for financial advisors. Old school, man. We'll do whatever we can. And we were looking. There was a write-up on there about the top producing financial advisors in California, and we figured, well, they know the industry. They're in our vertical. Why not hit them up? And so we've got some traction and some meetings set up going forward with those guys.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's a hustle. But
so the company is out of Irvine?
Yeah, it is. It's out of Irvine. Newport Beach, actually.
Newport Beach.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 73 and Irvine Avenue.
All right.
Yeah.
And myStartUp.com for all those out there. Do you have social media as well?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we're just getting started on the marketing side, so it's grim. But if you keep up with it, we're really starting to push a lot of effort there.
Sure. So for all the entrepreneurs out there, if you're looking for life insurance, if you're looking for a model to learn from, going up against sort of some of the big boys and establishing yourself in a market, myStartUp.com. This is Josh Crowe.
Thank you guys for having me. Yes.
And I want to thank you for coming here and joining us here on myStartUp.Live. This is obviously a show that profiles CEOs and founders of new startups each week, Fridays at 4 o'clock. And really happy to have you on your show and talk about life insurance.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been wonderful to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time on myStartUp.Live. Thanks for joining.